Do you think it's racist to hire based on race?
I don't think it's racist. I think it's like a limited mindset for sure. I don't know. I think that it shouldn't even be like a factor that you look into.
Just looking at it from on the surface level, I think so, yeah.
No, because I think it's kind of like the argument like with the Black Lives Matter movement. They're not saying Black Lives Matter more. We're just trying to put emphasis on the fact that there have been things in the past that have put certain people of color down. And this is just another one of those types of movements.
Looking at someone's skin color and expecting them to have a diverse set of thoughts is kind of racist.
Do you think it's racist to hire based on race?
Are you kidding me? We can have diversity and we can have merit.
People should be hired on their merit, not on the color of their skin.
No.
Do you have a explanation for that?
No.
I mean, I got the job. So.
So today I'm out here and the question I'll be asking is, what are your thoughts on diversity hiring?
I don't think you should be having following a quota, oh, I need 18 women in my workforce. I think a lot of media has it construed a little bit. Some people are either on opposite ends of the extreme.
I think it's very cool and base to make sure you have a diverse workplace, and whatever you have to do to make sure that's the case is fine by me.
There's just no need for it, I don't think. People should be hired on their merit, not on the color of their skin.
Well, I think it's a positive thing. Everybody needs a fair shake, I think.
Do you feel like you were ever just hired based on your race?
Yes, actually, I think that they were looking to make their staff more diverse, so they chose me.
How did that make you feel?
I'm fine with it because, I mean, I got the job. So.
What?
The company is hiring exclusive.
Oh my goodness. She said she's fine because she got the job. Let's see what others have to say.
On the basis of creating a diverse workforce for their company. I don't think that they should hire based solely on race, but rather on who's the most qualified applicant.
So at this point, I'm sure you've heard about DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, but some people have called it discrimination, exclusion, and inequality. So to find out what's really going on, I interviewed hiring managers anonymously so they don't get fired. And as someone who actually worked for a Fortune 500 company as of 3 months ago, I wanted to explore both sides of what's going on. Because do we truly want diversity and equality, or is it all just for show? I guess we'll see, but let's start with some interviews. Do you think it's racist to hire based on race?
I don't think it's racist. I think it's like a limited mindset for sure. I don't know. I think that it shouldn't even be like a factor.
Let's define racism. Let's see what it says. Racism definition. Racism, prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. Typically one that is a minority. By definition, this would be racism. And the reason I say that is the second word within the definition, discrimination. Let's define discrimination, because you just got to keep defining stuff. The unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people. So it would technically be unjust to not hire someone based off of their skin color. And that's kind of what you're doing. If you're saying we're only going to hire this subset of people, that is kind of prejudiced towards another subset of people. But then again, it depends how you define prejudice. It depends how you define discrimination. It's all subjective, but by the definition, I think it could fall in between that. But let's continue.
That you look into.
Just looking at it from on the surface level, I think so, yeah.
No, because I think it's kind of like the argument like with the Black Lives Matter movement. They're not saying Black Lives Matter more. We're just trying to put emphasis on the fact that there have been things in the past that have put certain people of color down. And this is just another one of those types of movements.
My name is Lily Zhang. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist and consultant.
What are your thoughts on diversity hiring?
This is kind of a funny question for me because a lot of people think diversity hiring and merit-based hiring are opposites. The really funny thing is that they're the exact same thing. The major misconception of diversity hiring is that we're going in and we're just handing jobs away to people who aren't qualified and saying we're going to give them more jobs at the expense of the qualified people. Not only does that not happen, that's also extremely illegal. What diversity hiring actually is actually trying to fix the existing biases in the hiring and recruitment process.
Well, nice to meet you. Talking to one of my subscribers, right?
Okay, what they were saying was diversity hiring is basically trying to fix an already biased system. If that's the case, then that makes a lot of sense. I don't know how biased the hiring system was prior to DEI because I wasn't in the hiring system. I was a teenager. So I don't know what that was like. But if that's what it is, why is it called DEI? Why is it called diversity, equity, and inclusion? And why, when I hear people talk about DEI, it puts an emphasis on specifically including minority races within hiring? Because let's say the system was already biased, and all of this is just a question, so I'm hoping for an answer. Let's say the system was already biased against a group of people. You wouldn't create a system called diversity, equity, and inclusion. It would just be called equity and inclusion. You want to include everyone instead of having a race quota now where it's say, okay, the system was biased. Now we're going to hire 20% black people. That's just a number. Let's just say we're going to remove race from all applications. I think that makes more sense than to have a racial quota, because if you will remove race from applications, and I'd even take it a step further, remove names from applications, because you can infer names based off of you can infer a race based off of names, they're kind of related. If you remove race and names and just look purely at qualifications, I think that would literally be more equitable. It would be more fair, and it would be more inclusive. But I may be wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Right now, I want to kind of just give a brief introduction of what you do.
I'm in senior leadership for we'll call it a Fortune 100 company, about 100,000 employees. Been in my industry for a little bit over 25 years.
What are your thoughts on diversity hiring?
To me, it's a terrible idea. You can't look at a person and tell who you're dealing with. And also, the things that make a person diverse aren't physically visible. I want to find people who approach problems different ways, and choosing skin color or gender does not tell me how a person problem solves.
So what's important to remember, though, is that none of this is new, as in the DEI. DEI in corporate America has existed since the mid-1960s from the Equal Pay Act, age discrimination, and affirmative action signed by JFK. But over the last few years, there's definitely been more focus. Okay, so what's exactly happening then? Well, since 2020, with movements like Black Lives Matter and increased awareness with LGBTQ members, DEI standards have become more enforced. Many companies and schools now have mandatory diversity trainings and workshops to close the gap and foster better relations. And big companies are now showing that with these pledges. MasterCard has pledged that women will earn $1 for every $1 a man earns, and Johnson & Johnson has aimed for 50% women in management globally. But is this push coming from this company's desire to want to be good? I mean, that's for you to decide. Because now to be listed on stock exchanges like NASDAQ, firms like Apple and Tesla must have 2 diverse directors, such as women, minorities, or LGBTQ+ to stay involved. And not only that, firms are now scored on these measures to get more money. Diversity is now included as part of their ESG scores that evaluates a firm's environmental, social, and governance issues. And these scores directly impact a firm's ability to secure more money at cheaper rates, since they will now be perceived less risky higher the score. So money talks, because companies are now incentivized to enforce diversity. And so that's exactly why it may not be such a surprise that the DEI industry is now worth $3.4 billion.
$3.4 billion? Wow, man. That's a lot of money. What I would say about that is looking at someone's skin color and expecting them to have a diverse set of thoughts is kind of racist. Because what you're doing is you're looking at their physical bodies and saying, well, you're black, or you're white, or you're Asian, so you should think like this, so we're going to hire you. And when I hear that, that's not right, because not all black people think alike. Not all, any race of people think alike. That doesn't make sense. So I try to tell myself that DEI is looking for a diverse set of thoughts, but the more I learn about it, the more it emphasizes physical characteristics that you can't change. And I don't see how that's relevant to a company. But maybe I need to learn a little more about it. I don't know. I'm still kind of young, but let's continue.
So with the corporations pushing this now more than ever, it made me think on what exactly the employees themselves think about all this. Well, I guess that's why I wanted to make this video. Because today, when we're facing a loneliness crisis, you can be canceled for sharing your true opinions. There aren't many outlets where you can share how you really feel. And bro, like, especially in the workplace, trust me, I was in corporate just 3 months ago. And for myself, ever since I've left the job to go all in on, use my link, betterhelp.com/gen, and get 10% off your first month of therapy with BetterHelp. You think you'll sign up?
Yeah, I'm all over that.
Okay, with that said then, how much responsibility do you think that companies should have over societal issues?
So much. So many. They are much larger and more powerful entities than like individual people. And so if anyone's able to make change in the world, it's up to them.
I do think that companies all have a responsibility to be aware of and conscious of how the social conversation is evolving. If a company kind of acts with impunity and doesn't really stay in tune with what society, with what real people want, then it's going to become irrelevant.
I think the larger companies should play a larger role just because they have more impact. Let's say Apple, for example, or Google. They have a worldwide global impact.
I guess also like maybe small businesses also don't have the luxury to choose from such a pool of applicants as well, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, you don't have thousands of people applying to your business per day or week.
I actually personally don't think they should give about any of the political issues. I'm a big capitalist, so like the only thing that should really matter is just how the company can survive, how can they make a profit, and how that profit could be generated, like split amongst all the employees out there.
How much responsibilities do you think companies should be taking regarding societal issues?
None. Let's face it, it's a tool to cover horrible things they're doing. I mean, we see companies like Apple using mines with African children to get things for batteries in Africa, but then turning around and talking about social awareness issues and cultural issues. I'm like, you're not practicing what you preach. I just find it all very, very hypocritical and unnecessarily divisive too.
But for some business leaders, they definitely have some clear opinions on this.
When it comes to that, I would just say, let's use Apple as an example because everyone's saying Apple. I really don't want to use Apple for this because I like Apple products. I have an iPhone right here. But for the sake of this conversation, let's use Apple. Why would a tech company, because that's what Apple specializes in. They specialize in technology and the latest updates and software. They're a leading technology source in the world. Why would it be their responsibility to focus on worldwide issues as they are now? It doesn't make much sense. And I'm saying that because they are tech-based. They focus on technology. It's technology. Why? How could they focus on other things? It doesn't make any sense. Unless they were to make a new division within their company that specifically focuses on world issues, I don't see how they're even suitable to focus on other things. But that's just my opinion. The same way I don't like to focus on things I don't know about. It just seems kind of foolish to me.
Chip Wilson, founder and former CEO of Lulu Lemon, is not a fan of the brand's new direction. But why? Well, in a recent Forbes interview, he called the models unhealthy, sickly, and not inspirational. And when they asked him about Lululemon's decision to extend into plus sizes, at least bro stood on business.
I think through this whole diversity and inclusion, trying to become like the Gap, everything to everybody. You're not everything to everybody.
And this all kind of makes sense, and at least he's consistent, because even the name Lululemon was specifically chosen with 3 L's because the sound doesn't exist in Japanese phonetics. And he specifically said that he chose it because it's funny to watch Japanese people try and say it. Well, guess what, buddy? I'm Japanese and I can say that shit perfectly. Lululemon, bitch. Anyways, Wilson removed himself from the brand in 2015, but what it seems is that even after his departure, there's been diversity issues within the company. It brings up the question of, do these inclusivity pledges and diversity trainings even do anything, or does it make things worse?
To me, it just seems like it's making life, it just seems like people are getting more divisive within each other. I'm not making that up. That's what's happening. It's a whole debate now on DEI, which is very ironic. It's called inclusion. Inclusion. That's the last word in the acronym, inclusion. And we're less inclusive now than we were 10, 15 years ago. It's like people care more about things we can't control, like race, gender, things you can't even change. It's more of a topic now than it's ever been in modern society.
Because obviously not every company thinks the same, but they should at least be consistent. And what I found is that there's 2 schools of thought. Just a few weeks ago, Elon blasted the DEI that discrimination on the basis of race, which DEI does, is literally the definition of racism. Then Mark Cuban responded that good businesses look for talent where others don't, and that extending the hiring search, you can find people that are more qualified, and inclusion allows employees, no matter who they are, to feel comfortable in their own environment. So now you can see how a Twitter or X war is happening. Elon then—
But both of them are right though. Well, both of them make sense. And the reason I'll say that is because Elon Musk is saying focusing specifically on race is racist. Hiring someone on the basis of their skin color, which you can't control, is racist. And what Mark Cuban is saying is, well, you need to find people with diverse set of thoughts, diverse set of thinking, and are from different places, or look for people who are from different places, which will allow a different set of skills. And I agree with both. However, I think there's a disconnect there. You can't just focus on race or gender when hiring someone. And also, you can't just hire one subset of people. I think they're both saying similar things, if I'm being honest.
Then responds and trolls by asking, when should we expect to see a short white or Asian woman on the Dallas Mavs, in which Cuban is the owner of? Okay, no matter what side you're on, that's pretty funny. But what this does show is the different perspectives and viewpoints on DEI from two billionaire owners. But to be fair to Cuban, there is research that supports his arguments. McKinsey research found that DEI expands the search for top talent and in turn leads diverse companies to make more money compared to others in their industries. But does causation equal correlation? Because if a company can prioritize diversity in its hiring, doesn't it also just show that it has the finances and resources to even prioritize that? Like, obviously different scale, but can a mom and pop restaurant afford to prioritize diversity in its hiring compared to like a McDonald's? So enough yapping, because I was curious to hear what the people think. Because at least for me, I think most people can agree that having a fair and equal shot is something that we can all strive for. But again, is DEI initiatives effective for that? Or is it all just to check a box? Do you think diversity initiatives sometimes prioritizes optics over actual inclusion?
Only when it's not in good faith. Yeah.
What are some examples when it's like not in good faith?
When someone's not looking at applications at all and they're simply just looking at like stats and data.
But let me ask you this though, if we just only base hiring based on, let's say, merit though, wouldn't that sometimes be at risk for less diversity?
I don't think so, because I know people that are like really intelligent have just that instinct that they're not going to get it because of what they look like, so they don't do it.
What? I don't even understand what she just said. And no matter how you flip it, hiring will never be based solely on merit. And the reason I say that is because interviews exist. The vibe a person gives off, no matter how you want to put it, that's why people interview. They look at your resume, you are qualified, then the interview tells them, do we like your vibe? Will you be a good fit for the company? What I'm saying is how you look shouldn't affect that answer. Just because I'm black or a guy shouldn't tell you that I think or act a certain way. That is racist, and that's the problem. Looking at someone and saying we're not hiring you because you look like this, that is racist. That's wrong. But anyways, this is on a channel called Jen. I'm going to quote it in the description. If you want to finish the video, let me know. I'm Jojo, and I'll see y'all next time.